Hey you guys, how are you all? So right now we are in the middle of August and this video is going to be about the remaining time of this year and the intensity that we are going to meet and how to be in that, which I think is the most important part because it's so easy to be drawn into what is going to happen, how do I prepare for this, what are the potentials, all of that. And I'm going to say a little bit about that, but then I'm going to bring it into how to be in it, because this is our job. This is everything, right? How do we choose to show up in it? How do we handle whatever we are being put into? And how do we move through that? Because there's no other way than moving through whatever appears in our reality. That's the only way as well we can create another reality, being aware and not being caught up in it. So this is what this video is going to be about. My name is Christine. I totally forgot to say that. I'm a channeler and intuitive, and this information that I'm sharing in this video has been coming in over some time, really. I've had visions of these last months that we're going into since around March, I think. And today I've been sitting down and really tuning a bit more into what is guided from the team that I'm working with, as to what is important for the time coming. If you are interested in personal sessions or my social media, you will find all of the links in the description box below to my website, to my social media and everything. So I would love to have you look at that if that is for you. Now, this time that we're moving into is going to be intense. That is on the world stage. And what is happening on the world stage is a reflection of the collective. So it doesn't mean that everything that is going on in the collective or on the world stage is going to happen in your life, but a lot of it is going to be mirroring as well some things that are happening on a personal level to us. And I think having both of those perspectives at the same time is really, really helpful and will be important. Now, we are looking at things as like, for example, the shooting that happened with the president candidate. That is something I had a vision of a few months ago, and it has already happened. Now, there are other things as well that I am having visions of, and I won't go too much into the specifics of that, but we are really looking at a time of one thing happening after another. There will be a lot of surprises. And when it comes to the US elections, that specifically will be really like a lot of events happening one thing after the other. I would say though that as everything all that is playing out and people are being drawn into everything that is changing and shifting, and what people are saying, what is happening to who, the sudden curveballs that are happening, also watch at what is happening in the rest of the world, in the shadow of everything that will be going down in the US. That is also very important. We will be looking at potentials. Now, obviously, we are not in that yet, so I can't say for sure that specific things are happening, but there are big potentials for things like more attacks. There's a huge potential for the elections being moved. There are big potentials for things happening with the economy, probably first and foremost from the US and then rippling out in the world. There is a big potential of knowing who is really actually becoming the president of the US first in January. That's a bit, from what I can see, that is a bit, there are not so big differences between some potentials, but as it looks for me now, that is the biggest potential. There are, it's quite certain that there will be quite some earthquakes. I had already seen the earthquakes in California. I've been seeing that from back to 2021, actually was the first time I was seeing like a series really of earthquakes happening around California and also just outside of the coast in California. So I would not be surprised if more of that will be coming. we are also looking at emotions. So a lot of turmoil in the human emotions. That together with that energy of eruptions, of things, of surprises, of things happening suddenly, that will be like fire and water together, and that will make it so that, like, that energy, if we're looking at it from an energetic standpoint, that is energy, and it is emotion, which is the element of water, and that together, the fire and water, will create many more potentials of happenings around violence. So we will probably be seeing more of that in the world at large. All of these things will be triggering shame. There will be a lot of shame being triggered in people, a lot of avoidance, all these coping mechanisms that we have created to deal with emotions like shame, anything around fear. And we have learned quite a lot the last years of fear, the frequency of fear and what it does to people, how disempowered we are when we are in fear, how easily we can be led and controlled when we are in fear. These things, it will help us, let's say, if we can remember that in the time coming and really use the knowledge and the wisdom that we have gained. And also then not falling into the self-judgment when we are not able to do that. And I will come back to that as well later in this video. The unexpected as well is a huge topic, as you can already see from what I've said. Now, I made a video around New Year's about the energies of 2024, and if you haven't watched that, I would recommend you to have a look at it, because I will not be repeating the things I said there, but there are things there that are relevant for, obviously, the last months of this year as well. And we have, I think I termed it the Year of the Water. I titled it the Year of the Water because that's the main topic the Blue Beings I channel was giving me for this year. And as I just mentioned, water is emotion. It's water's moving on the planet in a very physical, direct, literal way, and it's also the emotions. And we will see a lot of emotions being stirred up from the events that are happening in the world these last months. I've also been talking a lot about polarity these last months. In channelings, that has been like one of the main topics that I have been coming back to again and again for the time coming. No matter sort of what topic they've been talking about, they've been coming back to how it relates to polarity and how we can raise our consciousness and expand our awareness so that we can understand from another perspective, right? That we are in a dimensional field of polarity. So we will be experiencing polarity. If we are in resistance to polarity, we will find ourselves just again and again keep just fighting the reality that we are in, and we will not move anywhere from that. But if we can see that we are in an experience, in a field, in a reality where polarity is actually, it just is, we can easier take a step back and see that, okay, this is maybe something unwanted, this is something that I see as wrong, this is something I see as good, and I have all these labels and I have reactions to things because this is good and this is bad, and I'm judging this and I'm not judging this, or whatever it is. There will be a sense of more intensified experience of polarity in this world, this whole planet. The reason why is because we are learning to stand in polarity, okay? So as well, if you want to hear more about that, I have done several videos this spring where I've been talking about polarity, and I will link some of them in the description box below as well with the 2024 video if you want to look more on that. Now, I want to go into focusing on change, how to be in this, right? Like I said in the beginning of this video, rather than talking too much about what is going to happen and creating storylines and creating fear, because we won't get anywhere with that. but it's just to have like a sort of a backdrop of what I'm looking at energetically when I am coming with the advices that that I will start going into now. First and foremost, it's presence. And maybe you are saying like, yay, you know, I know this and how important it is, and maybe you're just like rolling your eyes and you're like, are you going to give me some real advices, or are you just going to like repeat whatever is said in meditations? The reason why I say presence is because we are to practice more and more to be in presence. Why is that important? That is important because whatever appears, whatever shows up in our reality, we have so many coping mechanisms of avoiding, of going into addictions, of just putting our heads in the sand, of pretending it's not there, of suppressing, of reacting in different ways. When we're triggered, we just have an instant reaction, just like a knee-jerk reaction, right? These reactions, these coping mechanisms are keeping us in the same pattern again and again and again and again in our personal lives and at a collective level. So being present and being able to take a step back, observe ourselves, and actually show up and not avoid the emotions, not avoid the mental sort of turmoil or chatter or whatever is coming up when we are overwhelmed, when we are in a situation where we're triggered, when things are coming up in our relationships. Showing up for that and not just putting it off because, you know, today's not really a good day, or I don't want to deal with this, or I dealt with this before, or whatever it is. Showing up and being present and being more gentle with ourselves, because so often we can go into that judgmental place, right? We criticize ourselves, we shame ourselves even. How ridiculous isn't that really? I mean, we all do it, but if you think of it from another perspective, how ridiculous is it to start shaming yourself for reacting to something, or for having an emotion, or for having a thought? What we are practicing to focus on is that we are actually practicing. When we are practicing, we are not masters of it yet. And if we expect ourselves to be masters of everything, we are setting us up for just shaming ourselves. So being present, that is accepting what is, rather than avoiding it or reacting to it. Because when we accept what is in the moment and we show up for it, that's when we can change it. That is where we have our power. That is where we can make a new choice. That's where we can gain the awareness. That is where we can be there for the emotion, be there for the inner child that is triggered in that situation. And that is where we create the changes. So the presence is important because that's how we create another world and another reality. Also, I think there will be a lot of talk about how to prepare for this. We have seen this before and we will probably see a lot of this again. What I would say, and I'm not telling you what to do, you do what you feel is best for the situation you are in, for the place in the world where you are. What works best for me is to not focus too much on preparing. The preparation I do is to practice being present in whatever shows up in my life. And that is a tall order, to be honest. Just that. But that is my practice, and that is what I feel would prepare me the best for whatever happens in my life or in the world. Because if I'm going into too much of a preparation state or mindset, it will very easily come from fear, or it will direct me into fear. Because I'm preparing for something, then because I'm afraid of a potential that may or may not happen. And what is actually happening then is that it disconnects you from your intuition. And what we need is our intuition. We are guided And the more we can step out of that fear and that rush to need to figure out which of these potentials are going to happen, how do I prepare for all of those potential outcomes, the more we can step back from that and just stay really connected within ourselves, the more we can hear our own intuition, and we will be guided so that we are actually safe. Discernment is another point, really, really important. Discernment is energetic, which is why it relates to what I said. It comes from presence. Discernment is not mental. It is not from the mind. Discernment is coming from feeling the energetics of something and feeling, is this right? Is this the direction I'm walking? Is this the choice I'm making? That way we are learning more and more to have a discernment and to navigate this world as energetics and as energetic beings. So again, presence and coming out of that fear and preparation mode and trying to figure out everything that will or will not go down. That is bringing you back to your intuition, is bringing you back into your body, into that embodied present state, which also will give you a better discernment, because discernment is energetic. Judgment, another huge topic. We will see a lot of resistance, right? Of it shouldn't be like this. This should not have happened. How can I prepare or do something different for this not to happen again? This person shouldn't have said that, shouldn't have done that. All of those storylines, all of those reactions, very, very normal. Observe them rather than being drawn into it and thinking that this is the only reality, okay? So we want, again, to step back, we want to observe, and we want to catch ourselves when we go into a lot of judgment for others or what is going on in the world or what we are doing or not doing in our own lives. Because when we do that, and I know this pattern very, very well personally, with the judgment of self, that just creates a lot of self-doubt. It creates a very disempowered state. And from a disempowered state, we are so much more a match to being in fear of taking in whatever comes from the outside without that energetic discernment of, is this actually for me? Is this actually resonating? Does this actually energetically make sense? No matter whether it will or will not make sense from the mind's perspective. And it is so easy then also, if we are very very judgmental ourselves, to go into a pattern of shame. And we start shaming ourselves. And all of this is just playing out the same pattern again and again and again. So how can you remind yourself when you are judging yourself for reacting or for having the same thought or for even avoiding an emotion, because you just heard that I shouldn't be avoiding my emotions, and then I go about my day and I just avoided it and I just don't want to deal with it. How can you meet yourself in that with less judgment? Because the judgment of yourself, the shaming of yourself, is adding to it. It's not going to make you make a different choice later on. That is what we believe, but that is not the truth. A huge point as well, I only have 3 more points, so follow me on this. Ancestral healing. Ancestral patterns are playing out. This is what we are actually seeing collectively. We all have ancestral patterns, and the ancestral healing is huge. It's really important. So the more we can move towards this in ourselves and see this and understand this and do this in our own lives, the more that will change what's going down in the collective beyond this year, really. But it is a huge part of what is playing out. There is clearing of the ancestral patterns. So this is, of course, what we are carrying, that has been, emotionally, the things that has happened with our direct ancestors, right? So it's in our DNA. But it can be changed. It can be shifted. So what has not been dealt with, that we are inhabiting really, or that we have I am just forgetting the word. Anyways, what we really got from our ancestors, right? That we have in us. That's both strengths, really important. It's not only the shitty stuff. It's a lot of strengths as well. But both of those, becoming more aware of what those are, and also shifting and clearing what needs to be shifted and cleared, that is something that we are doing when we're showing up in presence, with the things that are coming up in our lives. But that is huge, because what happens when we don't is that the historical patterns, and that is what we are going to see now, really. So if you sort of zoom out and you watch what is going on the world stage from another lens, from a bigger perspective, you will see that there are a lot of historical patterns that we're going to see play out. But it's going to play out in a shorter amount of time, so it's not going to be as dragged out as before. The reason why is because we make the same choices in many ways, so that it will keep just spiraling. But when we gain the awareness, and when we start seeing what we are carrying ancestrally, each and every one of us, that's our own responsibility, and we start to see that, we start to make different choices, because we have the awareness and we have been showing up for it. Then what is playing out collectively will also change. Okay, so how many of the things that has been happening historically in the world that will be playing out in the time coming depends on our level of awareness, of our choices, and of our presence. So this is the power that each and every one of us really has. And if we have the curiosity to see the patterns that are playing out, and observing that and learning from that, then we can choose differently and not be so caught up right in it, which will be very helpful. Now, second last point, it's a bit of a longer video, this one, is distraction. There will be a lot of distraction, and just, when there are curveballs, when there are things happening all the time, there's new things always, and it has there's a lot of scare in it, and there's many unknowns. When we are in those situations, it's very easy to be caught up in it, to be drawn into it and be distracted, or use any sort of addictive pattern as well to distract ourselves from it. When we go into distraction, especially if it's unconscious, sometimes we just need to distract ourselves a bit, and it's like, okay, I just need to breathe. I just need to distract myself a bit, and I will come back. Like, that is one thing. We are humans, we are learning, we are practicing. Be gentle with yourself. But when we are unconsciously being distracted or being drawn into something, that is taking away our power, because where we focus our energy, that is everything. And if the distractions that we are unconscious of, or if we don't see that this is actually a distraction, this is a storyline, this is me being caught up in fear and just diving into a rabbit hole, if we are in that is taking all our energy to that, rather than creating our own future, rather than creating the world we want to live in. And so the distraction has the power of focus of your energy. And that is everything. So be aware of that. Also, look at how when it comes to distractions, how the things that will be happening on the world stage maybe will distract you from what is happening in your life, because it will feel so much bigger than what is happening in your life. If there's like these small things, like, in your daily life, in your relationships, for example, that is happening, and then there's this huge event going on, and there's like a lot of uncertainty, and people are trying to find out who is saying what and what is actually right, and you know, we get drawn into that instead, that will be us actually adding to the collective patterns rather than shifting it. Because again, if we come back to that presence, back to the present state, and we can come into more awareness of what is going on and actually shift and change in all of those dynamics that we are engaging in every single day, that is what is changing the collective energy. So again, you have a lot more power than you give yourself credit for very often. Last point, ground and center. And you could say that this goes without saying, but we always need a reminder, right? Ground, ground, ground. Whatever you have of tools to ground and to center yourself, that is going to be really important for you. The calming of the nervous system. What tools do you have in your toolbox? What do you want to practice? And really, really prioritize that. Because the more we can get our nervous system out of that fight, flight, freeze response, and we can relax, we can come back to ourselves, we can have practices that brings the sensation of safety to our bodies and to our senses, that will let our mind ease up a little bit, and we have to practice coming up out of that overthinking, overdrive mind, right? When we're trying to, if we are in fear or we have shame triggered or whatever, we can so easily go into that overdrive. Just there's like a constant chatter trying to find out, trying to figure out so that something won't happen, or so that I won't make this mistake once over again, or whatever it might be. It's just like on overdrive. We have to train the mind, and this is a practice again, to know that it can't find a solution that is on the energetic level, on a frequency of the problem. So we have to let that go for a bit. We have to settle into the body, and we have to find that discernment, which was energetic, right? We have to connect into our bodies, be in you know, allowing for our intuition to emerge, being present, showing up for whatever is coming up in our lives with a lot of grace, being gentle with ourselves, meeting ourselves with self-love rather than judgment and shaming. Because when we do that, we are starting to react differently. We are starting to change the patterns and the dynamics that we have in relationships. We are starting then to have ripple effects, and so much more love, so much more compassion for ourselves and for others. So many changes around judgment and how we are learning to stand in polarity in a world that holds so many, it's like a mosaic. There's so many perspectives, there's so many colors, angles, and this is the world we are living in. And this is what we are practicing. So I hope this is helpful for you. I would love to hear in the comments what you think of this, if this was helpful for you, and also if you have any practices that are helping you, feel free to share those, because others will read that, and that can also help someone else that really, really needed it in that moment. And as always, if you want to support my work, liking the video, sharing it, subscribing to my channel, and also commenting is really helping that algorithm, as we know. So I'm really grateful to everyone doing that. Thank you so much for being here. Stay present. I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.